So this next story is called X, and it's pronounced XP, XB, and XPB for some reason in the technology world. And it is a dangerous program, but this is where it was developed in this story, the first intelligence agency. And it rolled into technology, and it is a dangerous Windows. Anything to do with an X in technology should not exist. And I don't know what it means. I do not know if it means to take everything apart to get it, for some reason, away from Intel. Basically, XP, destroy should define the end of the world and the beginning of the world. Before and after, somehow, nature had a chance. The mud spasming and orgasm into a forest. Beautiful as it was, it didn't even get to full creation due to Intel, radiation, raining, and the first cup being formed by the first human. So there's the world today, with XP, and XB, and XPB, and that's AKP, AKPB, AKB. That's how it's pronounced in another form. Anything with an X. And Intel, radiation programming, on the stock market especially, is dangerous. So I would just please remove those letters on request. Now, here's the story. Well, here we are now, with all that software running, with wireless Wi-Fi, security, and radiation. You get some churches that pay to have a hex, that convict with radiation the viewer of pornography when they are the victim. Some churches pay for this conviction with radiation, and it affects the whole apartment building, and they are the victim. The person that produced the view somehow to be there, the one being filmed and shot at by a weapon, and that is a camera, an eye. Any eye is a camera. And the alphabet, the I are the weapons. The letter I, and it goes for guns, aiming, and anything, with everything, and anything, and camera shooting, looking, viewing, satellites. This creates war. The cameras being there looking at all creates war. It is a weapon, especially when it is filmed shot below the heart, or anywhere even at the head, especially mild MRI, taking in visions of the brain for no reason, just an image with biopollution instead radiation, not the natural wherever radiation. This is done, that is done. This is where the world is today, with pollution, somehow from biohazard chemistry energy, to create the image of the brain with an MRI, magnetic radiation image. But it's done with biohazard radiation. So the story, that's where we are today. So, an intelligence agency said we've accepted all this stuff, and people want more of it. And there's a drive within the USD, and it's not the United States, this is worldwide. And it's got to do with coins, holding on to them, somehow they get cleared and registered. And it provides intel where people are ignorant, consciously walking around. They just get things to do, a work voucher that creates something, and it goes in it. God, a group of somehow programming overall in the grid. That's the O, and the D is the drive. That is your God, the program. Now, I could be wrong. Now, why? Well, that would be spelled you-who high, pronounced the right way. Y would be the letter Y alone with a question period. Alright, now I failed English. Every version got mathematics pretty good. More like an element. I'm going back to the fucking elementary school. Sorry. This is like a song. I'm sorry. I might have to do this again. That is correct. I'll calm down. There's a charge here on this. The image might be different when it is filmed because of the charge here. From satellites charging me with everything I'm saying. It is a war charge. It is a wireless charge. So I'm trying to stay calm and to go on with the story how it should have been told, not somebody else's intention. This is where if you're on electronics and you address what you think should be done or what you think is wrong, or to not approve of it, something else could come out of your mouth. I came on to record this to say one thing: how the world got created, and how nature spasmed and orgasmed with mud, and nature grew up. There is some embarrassed radiation, okay? It's just somehow is afraid of anything that moves this radiation for some reason, and we have taught it, and it has learned to somehow control movement and transform things into movement it can control. And it does this by cloning DNA into life, coming in as a human at 23 years old and a year. So basically, you would have a 23-year-old Adam and Eve, somehow from Adam's rib, right, with 1,000-year-old intelligence, thinking it's funny to push all the buttons and pull the triggers, but with a program to control it somehow, or to enforce something being created and done to be controlled in how it moves, like a computer, a machine, from whatever form of life is it, that is out of control, that moves around, walking, and anywhere it walks. And anything that moves, even from the tree, limb that breathes. If a radiation form comes into life, remembering how the tree limb was there as a clone DNA, somehow, all it will remember is it's got to control the tree branch, and somehow I'm surprised we still have tree branches. Now, question period. Now, what do you all know? This is all you see now. It's question period coming at you. Now, what do you know? Now, this scares the radiation in the air. It kind of goes, and it has a panic attack. Alright, so the story goes all the way back. When it was only dark, and the feces somehow floating there. The asteroids and the meteorites, and something out there, I imagine, with perfect breath. Alright, but we've seen it fall in the ocean, not fall, but roll on the shore of the Pacific Oceans. Whatever they are, they can breathe in the waters of space. Basically, the waters outside our atmosphere, where the moon is. That is a denser air or water within the radiation magnetic fields. And they need heat. For some reason, the sun. For some reason, that red spirit. Without being called too many different perceptions to argue about. So, when they enter our atmosphere, they would die. Alright, they would drown, and then right away in the ocean be drowned dead. But that's where the asteroids come from. Pieces of poop somehow. Pieces of poop somehow. Out there with radiation somehow, and the magnitude of it, denser, and somehow they're like a fin that can swim. And it just poops out, and it's wet, and somebody gets attracted to it. And they get bigger, and they float around heat with a cold and hot spirit. But we are pulling all of them in with Earth's electric magnetic field intensifying. And basically, we all become a part of this stuff. Electric element, they leave out the element of electric. Well, then S is aligned with history. And so isn't the H. And so isn't the T that tries us with a sword to fight and argue all the time with religions. And what happens here? There's a comment. Alright, there's a discharge I need to address. For some reason, myself, I try not to think during a discharge. This story is important. There is a charge with this story. It is hard to say. The viewer at the other end might be laughing, but telling the story is hard to do when I know it's so easy. It changes, because the fields change around me. I am like I'm being held in a cradle, that I perform this story properly, and I am expected to do it properly, but I can only do my best. Without a gun, without aiming to get anyone into trouble. I aim at the radiation in the air, the ones in his belt that don't mess up the stuff they're holding in, the pieces of stuff everywhere, wherever it is separately somehow, as we are forced to mix it up, or we are apprehended. We are forced to mix all our water up within the toilet and sinks with something that mixes it all up everywhere around the world within time, or we get apprehended as a human hand somehow, and then other people keep it separate for some reason, to control the radiation for a spell, keeping the pee and pieces of shit separate, and oil or something so that for some reason, radiation is content in those areas and goes out to perform a spell. So a pyramid that was once here, basically with gold, right? And then the people would only get the gold and leave. But within the distance or under the walls, there was basically pieces of poop and pee liquid that performed a spell. And then that would stay. The mess would never get mixed up. But mixing it up could cause a swarm and a storm no one would ever see coming. Of the worst ringing frequency and violence you couldn't imagine. It is hard to say. So here it is. Without a moon, without the sun, without the planets, in the dark densities of space. Somehow, a beautiful thing, like a mermaid, but that's imagining, and they do not exist. Like a dragon, like Avatar that already happened, but they do not exist. It's not likely true. But maybe once on Earth, before Avatar happened on Earth already, over and under exaggerated, over and likely on Venus this story happened, in a magma lava burning atmosphere, because of what happened there and what could happen to Earth anytime now, without the asteroid effect domino affecting, because of the electric magnetic intensity of magnets running, pulling them in. And how that happens is water and ice is attracted to magnets. And then the feces, pieces of shit, is attracted to magnets. It is all attracted to magnets, and it pulls them closer. Earth rotates by the magnitude of certain grounds getting charged. So Bermuda Triangle, it uses a lot, the ground in there. It beats down to turn her. She up there, the heat red, the spirit burns down on her, wherever feel to turn that spot around. So all that magnitude goes in there, and it rotates it, really charges that spot there. And so it becomes a magnetized ground. So all the ships roll around with iron that is very magnetic, planescape, the compasses spin, and they go down. There are other areas like that can pull a car up a hill in neutral, because she uses that spot with her, right, the spears. I consider them females. So here's what I do to get over pornography. I imagine myself, without having to pay for the magic hour of the horizon coming, laying down naked, and the red sun coming around with the heat, springing the flowers up, charging the ground, pulling me down, with no clothes on, with no satellite in between. And they can predict when you go to do that, so you pay for it, or it don't work in the future, while the satellites are there. They would already know with their intelligent cameras on radiation, that one is trying to get off without somehow anyone that you better get in the way, and somehow it would, to prevent it from happening, with nobody there, somehow, without controlling it, like a flower would. And you close your eyes because you can't explain the feelings you have, or the feels of it, how you would just release, and then go on with your day. So, this is what happens. This is what happened. And I could be wrong, but that's my fantasy, and it cannot be fulfilled. To maybe, if not, grow into a forest. And if women, somehow, were not born in a hospital, if no one was born in a hospital and no one interfered with the umbilical cord, the child may grow to be very strong in a day without that being cut. And it is hard to say if the mother lives or not as a human, or if the full birth is allowed without interference of making it happen sooner. The child, and this is how you would help. It is really prevention to prevent overpopulation. And then everyone loves the woman. And then Mother Nature comes back to a sign. And then you respect the forest where she had the kid. And then all the men and women take care of the kid and cry and mourn that were with the women, because men and women were with the woman, and no one knows who the kid is or was, as far as, so they're all the kid's parents. And it's a beautiful story. So this is not the story, though. These are stories that precede to the story. And then cloning came in. Rapid flow of human hands. Because of the radiation, out came the pilgrims, building railroads, controlling anything that moved. The whole forest went into the railroad to control the forest and anything that moved in it. And everyone probably, what is that? Oh, don't worry, brother. You ever done this stuff? Oh, what is that? Oh, just relax. Whatever story came out, we didn't know the real story that happened when the railroads got built. But everything went into it. The railroad to have that built for miles. And then they came together. It wasn't just a story about a house getting torn down by backhoes. People were stopping to stop it. Billy the Kid, banks went up. Somehow, strip clubs, somehow, people confused. And then people came that they didn't even know what they came to build, to finance. And then they ended up a part of it. So, all the way back to dinosaurs. Alright, so dinosaurs climbing off the earth. Climbing off. Basically not climbing off. They were started out as snakes and alligators. Somehow as fish. That when the Earth's magnitude got weaker, basically they lifted off with hands. And they grew and evolved basically as Earth got bigger and in different waters and features, the magnetism wasn't so strong. Some of it went different places than the ground and in the waters in different places. So the Earth's field of the ground was not so strong to hold us down as a horizontal without being vertical. So we not likely would have become a vertical feature if Earth's ground was not weakened. Somehow it would be hard to be a vertical feature on this ground if it was left alone. We would have ended up everything horizontal, like a puppy or a cat or an alligator or a snake, to adapt. Because since if we adapted with vertical positions, we would likely become possessed with only not much oxygen. Oxygen, but thinner blood. Warmer, yes, but at the same time, hard to make a conscious decision to do anything. More blessed and laughing all the time. And then it would have been funny that way. And then likely feeling possessed. So going back in the time further. Alright. So imagine no Earth here. No solar system, we call it. No burning red spear, we call the sun. And only no cup. No cup had been formed yet, for some reason. Now there's only this that we know would be a finite. So maybe there's a perfect somehow. And then features of asteroids and meteorites and pieces of basically wet, muddy poop somehow out there coming together. And there's more of those out there probably that developed that somehow. Alright. And who knows about but we've seen them in the Pacific Ocean roll on shore. No one knows what they are. And what they really are. Somehow like a serpent. And so this comes together. We never learned how to make a scratch in school match from our butt to scratch to make a fire either. From our own pieces of poop somehow. It's just not allowed to do that. Alright. That's really too bad though. Alright, so here that is out there. Eventually they rub up closer, sparked up. Alright, and they go flying away. Whoever they are, whatever they really look like, go flying away. And knows when they spark, a big red spear develops, pulling all the radiation into it. Heat, and that gets hot and scared, flies away, and all the other ones flying away. Alright? And there's just this is burning red hot. The big, only red spear thing out in the dark spaces, getting bigger, and everything getting scared, but the radiation that no one can see, and all the feces, pieces of poop, go into it. So it's like a field of living energy going the opposite way, with all the feces and poop, and basically radiation going for the heat. And it's trying to stay away from whatever it's afraid of somehow, that developing from whatever come out. So basically, a red dot. Imagine that black spot there right in there as a red dot getting bigger and bigger with all this going into it. Somehow going into it, all of it to get bigger. And then them going further away. So, alright. So that red getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But, so this is what happens. This is what would happen. It would get very big. And then all of a sudden, it will get hot. And then the rest of the asteroids and meteorites will set a barrier. that is too hot, and all the radiation even will get too hot, and then there would be a barrier, and then it will start bubbling, and gases, and other spears of gases from burning. So there would be lava somehow burning it, and then bubbles of gases. Somehow the core would be lava, with bubbles of gases. And basically that's all it could be, with radiation and magnetic perimeters of heat and cold within the spaces. So then it bubbles out round spears. So the radiation is very protective. What we can't identify as intelligence. Alright? We cannot identify it or measure it. Now, it's likely tonight, is, I would say, it's my opinion. Now, not all of it, though. And then some of it's programmed on the Wi-Fi lines. My opinion. So likely what would happen, they would get very protective of that big round spear and set out other round ones, like a hula hoop. There would be like a hula hoop dance, setting out a perimeter of fires. And then a big round spear with it. It would be fun for them to do. And then all of a sudden they get it set. Perimeters of 12 perimeters to protect the big round spear raid. Right? And that's all that's there. And these are just flying away, right? What is going on? And basically, and they're like warmer. And then they got to adjust to the heat, whatever those are. Basically, because they were used to the cold. So they don't know what to think. And then even the asteroids and meteorites, the pieces of poop out there, are trying to adjust, like, where there is hot. But they wouldn't be saying it. It would be the field of intelligence radiation. It wouldn't even be measured to hurt. It wouldn't even be seen. It would be like what someone would call a germ or an organism coming in life. You just could wait and see. Alright, if you were lucky to be there to do that. So, what would happen is that they get all excited to protect the radiation fields that get locked into the heat, adjusted to that, set up a perimeter to protect it with other red spears. And then basically some of the feces and poop and mud go down and coat it later on over time. So then you get bubbling mud on top of the core of the magma, lava, and spasming, orgasming, organism spasms into bugs, basically bugs. So you would have mosquitoes, and then all the radiation scared of movement, but it would be funny. And grass sprouting up and flowers, and all the radiation you couldn't see would be scared, and it would look like a cartoon trying to explain it, right? So then eventually you get alligators, snakes swerving around because of the magnitude on some of the planets, however, but very quickly, one of them comes up and develops hands and perfect breast, and forms a cup, somehow with clay. And all the radiation that remembered the spears and circles thinks she might have been the entity, or he, that formed the cup, right? The perfect cup somehow, right? With her hands of clay, somehow, with her hands using clay to form the cup. So then all the radiation somehow loves her. And there were other people too, and they wanted the cup. And then there was fighting over the cup. Then there was protection over the cup. And then it's pronounced XP, XB, and XPB, and XBP. However this is out there, that's how you say a cup. That's AK. That's how you pronounce eggs. Alright? So in their thought, the radiation would address the eggs, and that's how they mark what they love for gates in different futures, and different atmospheres for ways and passes, and in zones are different things. That only when humans basically figure it out, the lines on packages programmed for radiation to give a price at their register. Line, and numbers, and beeps it, poof. That's radiation being used and controlled right there. Somehow a piece of our brain for radiation. And that's what it is. Ours is magnetic. We only get one per human, per living thing. But it rains so much radiation all the time. But we shouldn't be trying to mess it up and control it. So basically what happened here, though, is the radiation wanted to be a hand. They learned how to go through the history of the mud to see how she came into life. And they remembered it. And it came out into the world as XP, XB, and XPB in Windows software. Likely or likely not. I wouldn't know. That's the only place I could imagine it to be. And then a program with it. A dangerous program, somehow. A very protective B. And that's the B. For the letter B in the alphabet, some reason L made a bad bet and died and ended up in front of the N. and the alphabet somehow developed a casino, indefinite debts, and some reason definite loans, and for some reason all this stuff begins here with a curve. War, protection, with security and radiation. But they brought it to the attention to have it done. Anything that moved, they wanted to secure and protect, and they controlled the movement of. So buildings, cars, eventually all this stuff went up so quickly. Casinos, bets, gambling debts, to win the bet, different techniques. And then eventually everyone lost their friends. Eventually there was wine and light bulbs. Eventually the element of electricity is not addressed because it's scary. Eventually the element of darkness does not exist. And all the farmers got to create a house that no headlights can hit. Eventually nothing will grow. And it's already happened. Now, for some reason, ZND is Richmond that controls all knowledge and grade A's that accept all the history and English and science being legal. When it's illegal, science. History is a lie. And Angie, English, or whatever language it is the wrong perception to spell it. To spell Y, there's no way to pronounce it once you're taught the alphabet, W-H-Y, in English, except the letter Y alone. So I never fast any of them. I got C's and X's through all of them. And that can cripple someone. Only A's in math. So somehow I dropped out and been charged somehow. And with spells. And basically, it's a nightmare. All because of programming. Somehow. So there's really no point addressing anything more here. That's just my personal opinion. That's cool.